Bitcoin wastes energy, destroys the planet, and boils the oceans. This is what you hear from most media outlets and politicians around the world. There are many wrong assumptions in the press when it comes to Bitcoin, but this might be the worst one. What if I tell you they got it wrong? Like 180-degree completely upside down wrong. What if I tell you Bitcoin is the greatest promoter of the transition to renewable energy you could ever dream of? A literal subsidy for renewables. And with that, I welcome you back to another video here on the channel. As you can see, I'm in a new setup once again. I'm currently in Austria and will stay here for the next few months. I've also got my skis behind me because I have nothing else that would make this white wall look a little more interesting. Getting back to the subject of the video, caring about making energy greener while being against Bitcoin is not just an inconsistency, it's even a contradiction in my eyes, but people don't seem to realize it, because they didn't dig deep enough into Bitcoin yet. I made a video about Bitcoin's energy usage before, however I do believe the subject is so important that I needed to make another one, so here it is. I want to speed over some of the misunderstandings or misconceptions that people have when it comes to Bitcoin energy consumption before going into the real subject of the video, which is the energy transition to renewables and Bitcoin in that context. If you want to learn more about these misunderstandings, then watch my video on them. Bitcoin uses more energy than some countries. So do Christmas lights or dryers in the US alone, not to mention the military backing the petrodollar system. Bitcoin uses X amount of energy for a transaction, much more than Visa. You can't compare the two. Bitcoin provides final settlement, Visa does not. Compare the Lightning Network to Visa instead. Also, the Bitcoin energy consumption has absolutely no correlation with the number of transactions or amount of people using it, so the metric is garbage in the first place. Bitcoin creates a lot of e-waste. ASICs, which are used for mining, have nothing toxic in them. They are recyclable, don't have batteries, and are bought on second-hand markets all the time, instead of getting dumped into nothingness after a couple of years. Proof of stake is much more energy efficient. No, it's not. It can't be more efficient than proof of work because it simply doesn't do the same thing. Money is energy. Past monies like gold, beads, stones of rye, shells all relied on someone putting in work. Proof of stake is essentially fiat. There is no unforgeable costliness. Comparing proof of stake with proof of work is a fool's errand. Bitcoin wastes energy. No, it actually uses a lot of energy that would otherwise be wasted. Is it expended for a useful purpose? Well, like all values, that's subjective. A lot of people attribute value to Bitcoin. If you don't, then it's not useful to you. Bitcoin mining is a dirty industry. No, it's mostly renewables, more than pretty much any other industry, and it keeps trending upwards. And as we will discover in this video, Bitcoin could fasten the transition to renewables like nothing else could. So buckle up, put on your seatbelt, and let's find out what this is all about. Renewable energy has one big downside. Its production or generation is not constant, it varies a lot. Hydro energy is not the same throughout the year. The sun doesn't shine 24/7 on your solar panel and wind doesn't blow non-stop. This is the first variable that is fluctuating a lot. And there is a second one. People's energy consumption isn't constant either. The peaks and troughs are not even close to each other. This has a crucial implication. If you want to go full renewables, you need to build enough renewable infrastructure to provide energy to everyone during the peaks, even when the wind is not blowing and the sun is behind dark clouds. This has two major consequences. First, you need a lot of capital to build that much infrastructure. And second, the infrastructure you build is almost never used to its full potential. In fact, you will be overproducing energy almost all the time, energy that you can't properly store, energy that no one wants. You actually have too much energy. This type of energy is referred to as waste energy. Sometimes it has even been sold for a negative return, just to get rid of it, because your other option would be to turn off some of your facilities, which creates costs of turning them back on and increases maintenance wear and tear. Think about how crazy this is. You lose money on your energy because there is no one who needs it. You might say just store the energy or export it to someone who needs it. And you can somewhat save the energy, especially with hydropower storage, but doing this, again, has a high infrastructure price and limitations as well. Making use of the sun, wind and water is not the hard problem. The hard problem is load balancing and grid management, transporting and saving energy. The grid itself doesn't store any energy and needs a balance of supply and demand of energy at all times. Notice how this puts those who build renewable energy infrastructure in a bind. I'm gonna repeat this, because it's the most important point of the video. To become 100% renewable while having a reliable grid, you need to build a lot of renewable infrastructure to be able to supply people with power during peaks. At the same time, if you have that much renewable power, you are overproducing energy almost all the time that you need to get rid of, or you need to turn off your renewable power plants during that time. None of this is optimal at all. The impact that Bitcoin can have here changes the energy dynamics completely. The Bitcoin network is essentially an energy buyer of last resort. If you have access to cheap electricity, you can plug in a Bitcoin miner and turn that energy into Bitcoin. You secure the network and get rewarded financially for your energy usage. This easily makes Bitcoin the greatest incentive machine for the energy transition to renewables. And also, you can build energy infrastructure that meets future demand and not just today's demand. The excess energy you produce until that demand is reached can be monetized through Bitcoin and therefore refinances your whole infrastructure much faster. At the same time, it's a free market force that drives efficiency. If you're inefficient with your energy production, mining will become uneconomical. And Bitcoin mining is possible anywhere. There is no locality problem. This makes Bitcoin the first tool in human history that can monetize remote energy sources that have no way to reach civilization. The energy industry is fairly conservative, and rightly so, because innovation comes with a risk. Power failures have an immense negative impact. However, even energy managers realize that simply expanding the grid won't be enough. Energy manager Mike Herman is one of those who thinks that Bitcoin is the way to go to make the energy transition work. You've seen this clip of Jordan Peterson getting his mind blown before, but it's worth looking at again in this context, because he's absolutely right when he recognizes how mind-boggling this really is.
So does that mean that Bitcoin is a very good way of moving resources from places that can produce electricity very cheaply to other places where electricity is more expensive? Does that actually make the cheap electricity, it makes the cheap electricity much more valuable?
Absolutely. This is
weird. That's a weird thing.
It's very weird, and I think it's going to have a very profound impact on the global energy market, because for the first time in history, we have a way to sell energy that is location independent. So a lot of places in the world have a lot of energy.
Jesus, that's weird. That's a really strange thing.
You just need an internet connection. You take the Bitcoin miners to where that energy is, and then you can monetize that energy and turn it into Bitcoin. It's magic.
So what's the net effect of that on the price of electricity worldwide? Is that deflationary with regards to electricity cost?
I think so. I think this is a point that I make in the fiat standard, which is that, we've had fiat subsidize all these dysfunctional forms of energy over the last 50 years that have led to the grid becoming unreliable. And we have Bitcoin, like the vigilante savior that it is, coming in and providing a global subsidy for anybody who can make electricity at a cheap rate to monetize that.
So it takes some of the uncertainty out of investing in cheap electricity generating processes that are geographically isolated. I just can't believe that's true. It's amazing that I think I must be misunderstanding, because it seems like you can move the value of the electricity magically without any of the problems of transportation.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, that's really something. Some of it was absolutely fascinating, like that idea that you can monetize energy production in areas that wouldn't be able to ship the electricity to market. That's absolutely mind-boggling. It'll take me like 5 years to think that through. And it seems to completely contradict the idea that Bitcoin is a waste of the world's resources, right? It's a complete opposite if this monetization idea is actually true. So that's really, really, really interesting.
Bitcoin expert Nick Carter recently published an article titled "Bitcoin mining is reshaping the energy sector and no one is talking about it." And he's right, so let's start talking about it. I don't have any doubt that Bitcoin mining will play a role in load balancing in the future, and we'll watch this space closely. And guess what? It's already happening. West Texas is one example. Bitcoin miners can buy energy from energy providers when energy is abundant, as in West Texas with an excess of wind and solar, drawing from the grid the rest of the time. In so doing, the miners monetize a renewable asset that would otherwise be dumped into the ground, while maintaining generally high uptime. During periods of energy scarcity, the miners can be turned off. The net effect is that renewables become more economical, as they can monetize their asset even when the grid has no demand for it. Another example is happening in Norway. Already we see Norwegian energy giant Aker declaring their intention to use Bitcoin as a load balancing economic battery, and to become a valuable partner to new renewable projects. Blockstream and Square are partnering on a solar-powered mining facility. Before you criticize Bitcoin energy consumption next time, think again, maybe you got this upside down. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and took something out of it. You can of course also check out my other video on the Bitcoin energy consumption, and if you want to, you can like this video and subscribe to the channel for further content here from Austria, and then I see you next time.